Hello, BLE 520 students. Welcome to the quick overview for Lesson 3. I'm in our Blackboard shell and I'm going to click on our Lesson 3 learning materials. In this lesson, you are going to have the chance to further your understanding about meeting the needs of ELLs in K-12 classrooms or pre-K through 16 classrooms. Some of you have brought up the questions about the focus on Arizona or U.S. policies and experiences, and you are not teaching in Arizona or maybe not teaching in the country. Since this course is specific to ELLs in the States, you'll see a lot of our information is bound to that topic, but you can always read the information and then interpret it through the lens of your personal experiences. Also, we'll talk a little bit about what you can do for your standard alignments in just a minute. So in this lesson, you're going to be reading about ELL experiences in classrooms and also working on your standard alignment RSA submission. So the RSA worksheet you're going to work on with your team. You guys have set up charters with your timeline and how your group is going to conduct its work together. You should notice, I don't have it, but when you check your My Groups, you should see not only your group like A, B, or C, but also a link for your RSA group where you'll have access to different tools that your group can use as you're collaborating on your assignments. Remember that only one person from your team needs to submit your assignment, and then it will populate to everybody else's gradebook. And in this assignment, there is a link to the teams, just in case you're not sure who's on your team, and also the examples, right? And so you've got a template that you're going to use. It's a Google Doc. You'll need to make a copy of it before you can manipulate it for your team. And then also an example. And just to clarify, the kind of overarching idea here for this assignment is to examine standards, get familiar with both content area standards and ESL, ELL, or ELD standards, however your state's defining that. And really see, this idea behind the SIOP is that we're bringing content and language together, right? In one lesson, how do we promote content, understanding, and language development simultaneously? And so this is a chance for you to get familiar with both sets of standards and see or imagine, envision, how might these two sets of standards work together in lessons? And what I'm encouraging you guys to do is to think through a well-rounded language lesson. And so if your content standard has an implicit or explicit emphasis on writing, then maybe your language standard that you pull in would be one that's more towards speaking, listening, or reading, right? So that across your content and your language experience in one lesson, students are having opportunities to experience as many language domains as possible. And so you can look through the templates and the examples that are provided. So when you're aligning your standards, that's what you'll see down here, right? And up above the alignment of the standards, you're going to want to describe kind of who is this group, this RSA group, right? So your roles as teachers, the standard area, the content area that you're working with, a link to your standards, and then who are the students you're imagining this would apply to. And so you're going to talk through and work through those ideas. And you've got both writing example and also a social studies example for high school. So writing for elementary school and social studies for high school. As you're working on your ISA assignment, you do not have to use Arizona standards. You can use a different state standard. You can also use international standards, but the idea is that you're bringing two different groups of standards together. So you'll want to think about a content area standard and a language area standard for the context that you're working in. So then one person will submit that assignment. You also are going to participate in just one discussion board this week. I know it's less than the number of boards that we've been already doing, but to make time for the RSA this week, we only have one discussion board. And the board is going to be based on this article called I Live in a Curled World, right? And so you're going to read that article, and that's going to be the foundation for your discussion board this week. And remember, you want to encourage conversation, communication with your peers. So when you do your initial post and you respond to the prompts in the discussion board, you also want to end that post with a question or a request or a tie out to your community so that when they're reading your post, they have an invitation to respond to it. It's okay to disagree in your response posts. That's how we think. That's how we stretch our brains. That's how we hear other people's experiences. So just continue the respectful dialogue that you guys have already established in lessons 1 and 2. So the other thing you're going to read this week is inquiry-based learning and this article called Walking into the Unknown. And so you're going to read that article, and this article is going to be the basis for your reading reflection this week. So that's there, and then finally the last assignment for this week is the reading reflection. Remember, when you're doing your reading reflections, you can just go with a word typing format, or you could also use any type of online tools like Prezi or Poplet, or any way that you feel best helps you represent not only the key ideas and most important points that you're taking from the reading, but also a synthesis, how this applies to your work, your ideas, your experiences. And we are right now grading and reading your first reading reflections. So the one thing that I would ask you guys is that before you submit the reading reflection for lesson 3, you might want to wait and review your instructor's feedback on your first reading reflection so that you can modify and adjust your work if need be. I think that that's it for lesson 3. We look forward to continuing to support your work in this course. And one last shout out to the virtual office in each of our group's discussion boards. Thank you so much for using that thread to post your questions about assignments and the course. And it's just been a great way for us to communicate. All right, that's it. Have a great experience with lesson 3.